Last week, I told you to bring somebody with you tonight. I hope you did, because what I'm about to say was never a solo assignment. And that is exactly the point. Let me start with confession, a confession that might sting. Think about the last time you decided, really decided to change something, whether it was a diet, the prayer life, the temper, the scrolling, the spending. You meant it. You were serious. And for about 9 days, maybe 11, you held it. And then it quietly died. No funeral, no decision to quit. It just faded. Now, here's the question that is going to run underneath everything tonight. Every one of those attempts, where were you standing when it died? I'll tell you where. Alone. You attempted to do it alone, and it faded alone. And then you walked away believing the problem was willpower. It was not your willpower, it was your design. Tonight, five things. The first two are going to take your shame off because I'm going to prove to you that your private failures are not a character flaw. They're a design mismatch. But the third one, well, yeah, the third one is going to sting before it heals because I'm going to walk into a room that you keep locked, the thing you never said out loud, and show you what it's actually doing in there. And the fourth, well, this is where everything flips. I'm going to show you why every ounce of willpower you've been spending was the wrong currency and what actually powers lasting change instead. And at the end, the free tool, 8 minutes, that measures exactly how isolated your renewal has quietly become. So stay with me. I'm Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach. This is Coach's Corner. And tonight, nobody renews alone.
Mindset shift, go. Yeah, we locked in tight. Clean heart, new life. Bass hit, feel right. Fake talk all night. Coach's Corner wave. We don't drift, we brave. Pressure make praise. We don't chase, we pray. Mindset academy. Built on legacy. Turn plain to recipe. Now it's joy and energy. Hands up, no fear. New steps right here. If you hear that call, you can stand up tall. From the fight to the win. Yeah, let the change begin. Mindset shift, go. Renew your mind, go. We move with the light, we shine in the night. Mindset shift, go. Renew your mind, go. Coach's Corner sound, make the whole room bounce. Kingdom in my talk, purpose in my walk. Always cut off, new grace won't stop. Hustle with a halo, peace when the days cold. Joy in my payload, hope in my base load. The mindset goes speak, truth make me leap. Heart set on me, but my praise go deep. From the head to the feet, let it all.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. And as always, it is an honor to be able to share a conversation with you on these Tuesday nights. Listen, if this is your first time, make sure that you look in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, find that icon, put your cursor over top of it, a flyout is going to show up. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Don't stop there. Find the notification bell, hit the drop down beside the notification bell, select notify all. That way you know every time we go live on this network. There's about 4 different shows that we have, and you don't want to miss any of them because I believe all of them are interconnected. And if you haven't figured that part out yet, just stick around and pay attention. You'll see that they're all interconnected. This is Coach's Corner, a show that I believe has literally, I don't know. I don't know. If you like Coach's Corner, put a 1 in the comment section. Put a 1 in the comment section if you like what Coach's Corner is and what it represents. Because I think Coach's Corner is literally that show that shows you that growth is available. And ultimately, if you haven't figured it out yet, growth is inevitable. Either you're going to do it on your terms or you're going to do it on the terms that life dictate to you. And I much rather be in the shoes too. I get to do it on my terms. So that's what Coach's Corner is all about. It reveals to you what is available, what is possible, and what we should be doing, ultimately based upon our decision. Now, that said, this past week was just extraordinary. We had a lot of moving parts. Last week, we talked about alignment on Coach's Corner, and I think it was just amazing within itself. But like I just said, if you paid attention, each subsequent show that took place throughout the week, literally in some shape, form, or fashion, talked about alignment. It's not by happenstance because if you were with us on Sunday during Bible study, I said the word contains itself. And I don't, I'm not just mixing words when I'm saying that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And if you pay attention, you will see that the word enforces the word and will continue to enforce the word because in it lies the truth. So, what are we talking about tonight? Well, tonight is why you keep failing alone. In essence, if I can just be completely transparent, like I told you last week, we are talking about accountability. Now let's back up because I know a lot of times we say things and we use the word accountability, but a lot of times what we're talking about is responsibility, right? If I'm talking about literally just this right here, me being in front of this camera, talking to you guys here on Coach's Corner, I made a commitment to you to do that. Therefore, me doing so is honoring my commitment, and I am responsible for what I said I'm going to do. That is called responsibility. Now, the other side of the coin is the accountability metric. How does accountability factors in? Well, I tell you, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, and this is my commitment to you. Well, a few of you out there can literally say that you're my accountability partner. And in doing so, some of you will say, hey man, you're pushing yourself too hard. You need to take a break. But then for me, I'm like, well, I have a responsibility to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. But, I get it. Sometimes you'll say, well, I get that, but we'll be okay if we miss one show here and there. And I don't like to think that way because I'll be honest with you, if I don't do this, if I'm not sitting here talking to you, I honestly feel like I did something wrong. I literally get to the point to where I just start second guessing myself. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and record a show. I don't care if it's like 12 o'clock at night, joking. But that's just kind of like some of the things that I think about. So understanding the difference between responsibility and accountability is key. And I want you to think about this all the way through this conversation. Where does your responsibility begin and end? And where does someone else's accountability begin and end? And then I want to offer this to you as well. What is the responsibility of accountability? Now, process that for a hot second. What is the responsibility of accountability? Because I think when we really stop and consider that, and if we're honest with ourselves, some of us have foregone our responsibility of accountability in the spaces that we call relationship. But that's okay. We're going to kind of pull the curtain back on that tonight. So first and foremost, we are going to talk about something that I believe is virtually important. You heard me say it in the beginning, and that is you were never designed to renew alone. Now, there's some of us out there who believe that I can come to a podcast or go to a TikTok video and then just put those things into practice. And those things will literally make me grow. No, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but no, those things won't make you grow. Those things make you aware of some things, but your awareness ends at the your awareness ends at the edge of what your conceptualization of that thing ends. So I can't do anything outside of the thing that I cannot conceive in my mind. So if you talk to me about flying an airplane, sure, I can get excited about it. Like, yeah, I want to go fly an airplane. I want to learn how to fly an airplane. I don't necessarily know how to fly an airplane. So I go online and I get all of these simulator videos and all this other great stuff. And I increase my levels of awareness in that. I don't have the practical experience, which I really need as it pertains to that thing, to test the thing that I know. So now at the end of my concept of this idea, that's where my awareness ends because I don't know anything beyond that. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we make as it pertains to this. The reason your private attempts keep dying isn't a character flaw, it's a design mismatch. It is literally the very first thing that God ever called not good. It wasn't sin. I'll say it again. The very first thing God ever called not good wasn't sin. It was, in essence, solitude. It is not good that Adam, the man, should be alone. And he said it in the perfect garden before the fall, while the man was walking with God himself. And man still needed another human being. So now you have to listen and hear this real close. Your need for people is not a weakness left over from your brokenness. I'm going to say that again. Your need for people is not a weakness left over after brokenness. You get it? It's wiring stamped into you before you ever broke. See, a burning coal pulled out of the fire glows bright for a moment and then goes cold and black. Not because it's bad coal, but because it's simply what isolation does to fire. So, what does that mean as it pertains to you? You are coal and the community is fire. So if you want the flame to keep burning hot, you have to make sure that you stay embedded in the community. Now, I'm not necessarily talking our community because I'm very partial to it. I like the way our community is constructed, and literally within the lines of our community, wherever you are, you can choose to go deeper, right? That's your choice, and no one is going to force you to do it, but life eventually is going to say, hey, I'm back. Wherever you are, you can say, I want more, and you can dive deeper. I want more, and you can dive deeper. And you can I want more, and you can dive deeper. You can do that's your decision to make, right? No one in the community forces you. We all embrace everyone as a collective, cohesive organization. And I think that's the important part. Because in essence, there is an African proverb, and I'm telling you, I think it's an African proverb. At least that's what all of my research said. And I've heard it a long time ago. And as we think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense. If you want to go fast, go alone. You can get someplace fast, but if you want to go far, go together. Now, I know that sounds cliche or whatever that looks like. And somebody out there is saying, well, what if I want to go fast and far? Okay, I'll play. Because when you go and pay close attention, you have to look at the word far. Because if you want to go fast and far, far is still a part of it. And so at the end of the day, when someone is being an accountability partner for you and telling you, hey, this needs to change or this needs to change, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to take a step back. And sometimes you may have to take one step back before you can, in order to take two steps forward. So will you actually go fast at that rate? Probably not, at least not based upon what you perceive fast to be. So renewal itself is not a sprint. That's what you have to keep in mind. It's not a sprint you win by yourself this week or even next week. It's more of a distance. And distance was designed for company. Look at the Peloton. You know, some of you guys who actually look at cycling, there's this thing called a Peloton. And a Peloton is actually a group of cyclers that work together in a team. And it's all about aerodynamics. And so there's literally a lead person, and that person pushes the Peloton. And then in essence, they will slingshot a person from the rear of the Peloton to the front. And then that person takes the lead. And ultimately, they've already decided which person in the Peloton is going to be the one to win. But the team works together for the sake of the win, not necessarily granting it to one person, but it's a team win. That's how you have to look at life. And when we don't look at life in that regard, that becomes problematic. Go back to understand how you were taught this thing called life. I remember hearing some things that, you're going to die alone, stuff like that. You're going to jump off a bridge if this person jumps off a bridge. So stuff like that promote loneliness and being alone and doing it by yourself. Those things, those words, those terms, those cliches are not healthy for you to continue to adhere to in your older age. See, in 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a formal public health advisory. The same class of warning they put on cigarette packs. Now you got to hear this because I think this is interesting. And this warning was about loneliness. And the finding was chronic social isolation raises your risk of early death by about the same amount as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Think about it. It raises the risk of heart disease by 29%, stroke by 32%, and dementia in older adults by 50%. And roughly half of American adults report real, measurable loneliness. This was a study that came out in 2023. Think about it. Real, measurable loneliness. And I remember there were times where I was lonely, sure, when I was younger, because I had no idea that being alone and being lonely is not the same thing. So you can be alone and not necessarily be lonely. And at that stage in your life, you now understand the difference of the power of being alone as opposed to the power that loneliness has over you. Oh, okay. I got it. I understand. Okay. Your body is ultimately preaching the same sermon as your Bible. You were built for connection. That's how God created us. See, its absence is literally shortening our lives, and we don't necessarily realize that. God said it wasn't good for man to be alone. And the science is just now catching up to the book of Genesis. See, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, like I said previously, and the Lord God said, I say again, and the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a help meet for him. See, that's how we have to look at life. I don't think the Bible mismatches any words or confuses anything when it comes down to. So my first question is, isn't this is good. Isn't get accountable dangerous for the person who was betrayed in a small group, gossiped about in church, wounded by the very community? If this is you, I'm going to ask for a level of transparency. If this is you, if you've ever experienced any of this, betrayed by a small group, gossiped about in church, or wounded by the very community that you once was attached to, I want you to put the number one in the comment section. If this was you, if you would be so brave enough to kind of enlighten me and let us know that this was you, regardless of what that community was. We don't need the name. We don't need the church name. We don't need the small group name. I just want to know how many people this applies to. Because as you guys are answering this question, I would be the first person to put a number one in the comment section. Okay. And I think this is an awesome question, by the way. Now, I think there are real wounds that we encounter in our social life. I do not want to take that lightly. And I think for the most part, um, we have to understand the reality of the wound. Did it happen? Yes, it did. That's my experience. Now, what's the understanding that I need to gain behind that experience? Because the enemy has a trick. The enemy is wise. He's cunning. He is up to something. See, he takes one bad experience with a community and uses it to sell you a lifetime of isolation. Now, I want you to kind of let that sit in for a second. He takes one bad experience from a community, from a church, from an organization, from a relationship, and he uses it to sell you a lifetime of isolation, which just happens to be the exact condition where he does his best work. See, getting hurt by people is a reason to be wiser about who, not whether it's going to happen. Now, who am I being wiser about? The people or me? Some people may say the people. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong if they say that, right? But I think the wisest that I become is when I take it and look at me. I become more wiser about myself. Let's look at Christ for a second. He had 12 disciples. Of those 12, he had his inner circle, which consisted of three. And out of those three, one was the closest. He was discerning, not isolating. Look at it like this. He did not dislike the nine, but he was closer to the three. And of the three, he was closer to the one. I'm not asking you to trust everybody. I'm not. In fact, the Bible speaks against that. So I'm not asking you to trust everybody. I'm asking you to find one safe, God-fearing person of proven character and start there. See, the goal was never a crowd. See, if we were looking for a crowd. And this is the interesting piece because in today's world, that's what we are drawn to. We're drawn to the social likes. Oh, I got 1,000 likes on my video. Oh, I got 10,000 likes on this video. Stuff like that. Stuff like that is attracted to us. But then my question is, of that 1,000 or of that 10,000, how many of them know you? See, the goal was never a crowd; it was covenant. And the faithful and faithful are the wounds of a friend. The right person's honesty heals. It doesn't bleed on you. So I kind of want you guys to kind of let that sit in and process that because I think this is good. Now, of course, question for you, because again, that's what we do on Coach's Corner. And if this is your first time, right? For every talking point, I have a question that was given to me that I will answer. And then you have a question that I'm going to give to you. You are not obligated to answer the question on screen. However, if you decide you want to answer the question on screen, I mean, you're more than welcome to do so. No one's going to chastise, correct, adjust, obliterate. None of that. None of that stuff is welcome here. This is all openness, honesty, and transparency. So now, your question. Be honest about the pattern, not just the last attempt. Across the last 5 years, how many of your real transformation attempts did you launch privately? Just you, a resolution, and a quiet promise no one else ever knew about. And how many of those are still standing today? What is that ratio trying to tell you? Let that set in. See, if you're like most people I've coached, you know, that ratio is brutal. It is brutal. Almost all of them private, almost none still standing, right? I do not want you to read that as a willpower report card. Read it as a design report card. And a design problem has a design solution. I say again, a design problem has a design solution, which is exactly where we're headed tonight. That said, part two is all about accountability. I'm sorry. Part two is all about accountability. See, accountability isn't punishment, it's protection. I know sometimes we get to the space where we don't necessarily want someone to hold us accountable because it kind of makes us feel obligated. But I think that's kind of like the point. The point is that you stick to what you said you're going to do. That's what stick with itness is all about. See, you flinch at the word accountability because somewhere along the way it got fused with getting caught. You picture surveillance, judgment, somebody standing over you with a clipboard waiting for you to fail. Well, let me reframe that entire word for you if you allow me to. See, biblical accountability was never a courtroom, it was covering. I say it again, it was not a courtroom, it was covering. The picture isn't a judge. In Exodus 17, Moses up on a hill with his arms raised, and as long as his hands stayed up, Israel was winning. They were winning this battle, but his arms started to give out because everybody's arms, if you hold them up, eventually start to get out. For those of you who was in the military, we get to the point of what we called muscle failure. So Aaron and Hur, they stepped in, one on each side, and they held his hands up for him until the sun went down. Now, I know they started to get tired too, but at the end of the day, they were in this together. See, that is accountability, not people watching you fail, people holding your arms up because you can no longer hold them up yourself. See, I think it's important for all of us to understand that in essence, when we really stop and think about it, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of a continent, a part of the main. But unfortunately, we want to remain private. We want to keep everything to ourselves. See, 400 years ago, Don saw it. You are not a self contained unit. A piece broken off the continent doesn't become independent, it becomes an island, and an island erodes over time. See, Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University studied 267 people chasing real goals. The group that just kept their goals in their head had a 35% success rate. The group that wrote their goals down and sent one to a friend, simple weekly progress update, over 70% success. I'll say again, over a 70% success, double the success. Same goals, same caliber of people. The only variable was a witness. One friend in a 1 week check in roughly doubled the success rate. That's not motivational stats, that's mechanics. Accountability is not the pressure that makes you fail, it is the structure that helps you finish. See, the book of Ecclesiastes tells us that two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fail, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe unto him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. See, that should bring things into perspective when we really stop and think about it. Now, my question here, which I think is a very good question, and I want you guys to kind of think about this question as I look at it and begin to answer it. Isn't there a difference between healthy accountability and just handing someone control over your life? Where's the line between being covered and being controlled? I like it. We have to understand the difference between accountability and control. What is control? Is it really control? Is it perceived control? Right? So those are some of the things that I want to start off with. But I want you to understand that a lot of our perceptions of control are rooted in past experiences. And then we brought those past experiences into the present time. And if for whatever reason it kind of looks similar, we automatically call it that thing. Not so fast. Here's the test I use. Accountability serves your freedom. Control serves someone else's power. I'll say again. Accountability serves your freedom. Control serves someone else's power. A covering partner reminds you of what you said you wanted to do and helps you get back up. And authority stays with you and with God. A controller uses your confessions as leverage and needs you smaller so they can feel bigger. Remember the picture, Aaron and Hur, right, holding up Moses' arm. They never took his staff. Real accountability always hands the staff back to you. See, if a relationship consistently leaves you weaker, more afraid, more dependent on someone's approval, that's not a covering, that's a cage. And you have permission to walk out of it at any time you need to. Now, I do have a caveat because I want you to be honest with yourself. Do you feel that way because that person made you feel that way? Or do you feel that way because you're afraid? See, I think sometimes we run from a thing simply because of how we feel, but we also have to look at the facts. The facts, in most cases, do not present an environment that stokes the fear. The fear that you may be feeling is internal. So again, I go back and I want you guys to hear this. So if a relationship consistently leaves you weaker, from what? Of what? Weaker how? More afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of who? Right? More dependent on someone else's approval. Why are you dependent on their approval? Are you really dependent on their approval, or do you seek validation for you to keep moving forward? See, it's not cut and dry. It's not simple. All of these questions are very important for us to ask within ourselves, because I think sometimes at the first hint of that gut feeling that makes us feel uneasy, we just take off and run. That's not healthy for you. So again, I want to make sure, because this is a great question, I want to make sure that we are understanding the difference between control and accountability. And if we are honest with ourselves, accountability recognizes that control exists in the relationship itself. Not you having control, not me having control. The relationship is in control if we honor the confines of relationship. Therefore, whatever it is I say I want to do as it pertains to this relationship, the relationship now keeps score, not the accountability partner. The accountability partner is only reminding you of what you said you wanted. And sometimes what we need to recognize is that indirect accountability is a thing. Hmm. Somebody just asked the question, Coach, what is indirect accountability? Great question. Here's an answer that I hope is just as great as that question. I say that I want to be a medical doctor. Okay. You, as an accountability partner, recognize that there are some things that need to be done in order for me to get the MD. My accountability partner, if their focus is simply the MD, then they're missing the benchmarks. So part of the accountability is helping me, reminding me of the goal that I said that I wanted to accomplish so that I can be motivated, inspired to accomplish the benchmarks. See, accountability must happen every step of the way in order to get to the end. So don't get mad at me because I reminded you of the end because these things must happen. Oh, wait. That also applies in every other arena of our life. I want this. I want that. I want this. I want that. Good. Now we must reverse engineer it. Once we reverse engineer it, now we have accountability that has to happen in route. Just want to share. I hope that helps. And again, if this is good, if this is really good for you, by all means, put another one in the comment section. Ones, and ones. Give me a one if this is actually working for you. Ones, and more ones. And then I want to ask you, as you're putting your one, before we get to your question, where in your life are you lacking accountability? Not you not being an accountability partner for someone else, but where you have intentionally avoided accountability in your life, finances, relationships, goal setting and accomplishments, so forth and so on. I'm curious, put that in the comment section. Where in your life that you have intentionally avoided accountability? Do not say in my relationship with the Most High or God or so forth and so on, right? Because that within itself, although can be true, it is bigger than that. Because some people will say, "Oh, well, the Holy Spirit is my accountability partner." That come to Bible study. Come to Bible study. We'll talk more in detail about that. Okay. Um. Now, for your question, when you hear the word accountability, whose face shows up in your mind, and what's the emotion attached to it? Is it fear? Is it shame, or safety? Because the emotion you feel toward that word is usually the fingerprint of the last person who held you accountable. Was that God's design or a counterfeit of it? See, for a lot of people, the face is the critical parent, a harsh leader, or ex, if I'm being completely transparent. And the emotion is dread. Now, if that's you, hear me and hear me clearly, because I think this is going to be good for you. You've never actually experienced biblical accountability. You experience control wearing this jersey. Now, again, I want you to make sure that you analyze that word control. You experience control wearing the jersey of accountability. You cannot heal from something you cannot heal from something you never truly had. Yeah, I think that's the best way of saying it. You can't heal from something you never truly had. So don't reject the medicine because a counterfeit once made you sick. See, accountability is accountability. It's not control. It's not, the parent that used to yell and scream at you at the top of their voice and whatever the case may be. That's a whole nother conversation, but don't confuse accountability with that. Okay. Moving on to point number 3. This is where it might sting a little bit, y'all. I love y'all, but this is where it might starts to feel a little different. See, what you hide in the dark grows in the dark. Now, I want you guys to realize that isolation by virtue of design is never neutral. I say again, Isolation by virtue of design is never neutral. It is not safe. It is not quiet. It's not a private place to work on yourself. It is the exact environment where shame and sin were engineered to grow. I want you to think about it. What does every predator do before the kill? It separates the target from the herd. The one that wanders off alone is the one that gets taken. See, that thing you will not say out loud, the struggle, the sin, the fear you've never confessed to another living soul, it's not shrinking in dark, it's growing. Because secrecy is the oxygen. Secrecy is the oxygen. I couldn't get it out. Every stronghold breathes. See, I want you to observe the order of James chapter 5, and then we're gonna talk about verse 16. It doesn't say get healed and then you will be ready to confess. It says confess your faults one to another, that ye may be healed. Confession isn't the reward at the end of the healing, it is the doorway into it, which means the one thing you're most committed to keeping a secret is standing directly between you and the freedom you keep praying for. Let that set in for a second. That thing that you are keeping hidden is the thing that's standing in between you and and that freedom. Hmm. Interesting. Because I believe, coming from, the writers of whatever, quoting Alcohol Anonymous, they said, we are only as sick as our secrets. We are only as sick as our secrets. See, the people who have fought the hardest strongholds on earth, addiction, right at the edge of life and death, distilled everything they learned into one sentence. Not we are sick as our sins, as sick as our secrets. See, the sin you've confessed is the battle. The sin you're hiding is a master. Columbia research Michael Slepian studied secrets across thousands of people. Two findings will preach. First, the average person is carrying about 13 secrets right now, and roughly 5 of them they have never told another single soul. So if you feel like you're hiding something, you're not the exception. You, my friend, are the rule. But here's the finding that should stop you cold in your track. The damage a secret does to you comes not mainly from hiding it in conversation. It comes from how often the secrets return to your mind when you're alone. That came out of a study coming out of 2017. See, it's not concealing that's killing you. It's the secret follows you around inside your own head and never stops talking. You don't keep the secrets keep you. See, we talked about James 5 and 16, confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. And then it goes on to say the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And a lot of times we like to quote that part, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much, but we separate it from the first part, which is confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of the righteous man, not just the effectual, fervent prayer availeth much of the righteous man. Well, who is the righteous man? Go back, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that ye may be healed. See, we can't separate these things and make up our own stuff, because when we do, we're taking them out of context. And unfortunately, when we take it out of context, one or two things have to be wrong. The contents are not in the container, or we don't have the right container for the contents. It's that simple. Now, this question, again, I love it. I love all these questions, by the way. I think these questions are awesome. Does everybody have to confess everything to everybody? That sounds terrifying. And honestly, in the wrong hands, it sounds like it could do more harm than good. I don't disagree with that question, though. I think there's a lot of people who believe that. I think there's a lot of people who read that scripture and have that thought. So I want to say it like this, because I think it's a good thing to press into this question and ask questions about it. press into the scripture and ask questions about it, right? So, no, I want to start there. I think if we read it carefully, James says confess to one another, not to everyone. Confession is meant for a trusted few, never a broadcast. Listen, this this reminds me. I told somebody told me one time, say, hey, you know what? You need to be more transparent and tell people more about you on camera. Like, okay, that's fine. Thank you for sharing that. Um, but in essence, I do. I'm not sure how much more they were looking for me to share, but I mean, I do. But then there's layers to it, right? There's things you get about me on camera, but then for those who are closer to me, they get more things. But like the Bible said, to get more intimate stuff about me because we are closer. I think that's what we're talking about here. Confession is meant for a trusted few, never a broadcast. You do not hand your deepest struggle to a crowd or to somebody who hasn't earned it. That's not vulnerability, that's carelessness. The goal is one safe, mature, confidential person. The kind of relationship where what you say is held, not reported. Wisdom about who never counsels, correction. Wisdom about who never cancels the command to confession. It just protects it. Confess to one another. Don't post it to everyone. See, I think that part is of utmost importance, and that's a mature question, and I pray that you view that as a mature response. And as we keep pressing forward, I want to kind of get into your question because I think your question is good as well. Now, there's one thing you already thought of doing this segment, one specific thing you've never said out loud to anyone. Don't say it now. Just answer this silently. How long have you been carrying it alone? And honestly, has carrying it alone made it smaller or bigger? And if alone was never going to fix it, wouldn't it have been fixed by now? See, if alone was ever going to fix it, wouldn't it have been fixed by now? Just think about it. So I think that question is the one I let hang in silence because most people have never white knuckle a private thing into submission for years. And it's still right there. That's not evidence you need more time alone with it. That's evidence that alone is the one strategy that has never worked and is never going to work. The breakthrough isn't hiding. I'll say it again. The breakthrough isn't hiding it or finding a way to hide it better. That's not it. It's finally letting one safe person into the room. I told you I would come into the room and was going to talk about something. Was going to expose a little something. But then I also told you at point number 4, it's going to start to turn over. And that's what this part is all about. So point number 4 is accountability isn't powered by willpower. It's powered by being known. You've been trying to change through willpower. And if you haven't done so, I remember when I used to try to do so. So you grit your teeth harder, you try harder, you want it more. You probably got to the point where you start reciting things over and 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 over again, simply because of what you want. But that was it. Willpower is real, but it's a battle, not a power line. It drains. Being known doesn't drain, it compounds. The moment one person knows your goal, you're going. And your gaps, something shifts that no amount of private discipline can manufacture. You are no longer the only witness to your own life. And a witness will change your behavior in ways a rule can never change. I believe that that is the genius behind the whole concept of iron sharpeneth iron. See, iron cannot sharpen itself. It has to be brought against another blade. It has to be rubbed against another blade with a little vigor to the point where you create some friction. And that very friction you have been avoiding is the thing that puts the edge on you. And Ecclesiastes gives you the math. A 3-strand cord is not quickly broken. You, your brother, and God in the middle. Where two agree, he said, there I am in the midst. The third cord isn't just your friend. It's the presence of God that shows up especially, specifically when two are gathered. And you cannot access the threefold chord strength as a single strand. By design, it's simply not available to you alone. What my people who know how to braid hair out there? I don't know how to braid, but I've watched them. And it's like three strands of hair. Well, not strands, like bundles of hair. And they take the time and they carefully weave them together. And I can't get my fingers to act like y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all have a unique way of doing that. And it's just, and it comes out a nice knot extended because it's tight. And if you pay close attention to it, man, it takes a little bit for them to untangle it, right? When it's time to take that hair loose. And I think that's the thing that helps us to understand the importance of what that third strand is all about. See, Dietrich Bonhoeffer kind of helped us out again because Dietrich is just one of those guys. And and in Bible study, we talked about Dietrich one time before. He said, the Christian needs another Christian who speaks God's words to him again and again when he becomes uncertain and discouraged. See, Bonhoeffer wrote that from inside a community of Nazis were about to destroy, a man who knew exactly what isolation caused. Notice what he says. You need another believer for it, not the mountaintop. The moment your own faith goes quiet, you can preach to yourself on a good day. You need a brother's voice on a bad one. I don't know if you guys remember. We had a Harkin meta-analysis that I mentioned during alignment last week. 138 studies, nearly 20,000 people on what actually helps people reach their goals. Here's the part I say for tonight. Monitoring your progress works, but the effect got significantly stronger when progress was reported to someone else or made public. Same effort, measurably better results. For one reason, somebody was watching. Not watching to condemn you, watching to witness you. Science just put a number on what Proverbs already knew. Iron has to meet iron. The edge comes from the contact. Two scriptures to remember, 27 and 17 of Proverbs, iron sharpened iron, and Ecclesiastes 4 and 12. And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So that takes me to my question. Man, time has been going. I'm sorry. I just seen that. My question is, be practical. What does an accountability relationship look like on a normal week? Because a lot of us picture some heavy, dramatic confession sessions, and that's not sustainable. And I believe to that person, you're right. You're absolutely right. And the dramatic version is exactly why most accountability dies. Nobody can sustain weekly deep sea diving. So keep it simple, keep it repeatable. One person, a standing 15 to 20-minute rhythm, a call on the drive home on Friday, coffee, maybe even after Sunday service, a voice memo every Monday morning. And that's not an interrogation, it's a checkpoint. Consistency beats intensity every time. Some of the things I like to share, and I believe I shared this on Sunday with the couple that I'm working with. I told them that every session is not going to be a home run. I said, but at least we should get on base at the end of every session. And the more we get on base, we get the bases loaded. And then the next time we get on base, we score a point. And every now and then, somebody's going to come up the bat and somebody's going to hit a home run. And if one person hits a home run, the team scores the point. Let me say it again. If one person hits the home run, the team scores the point. If the bases are loaded, the team gets 4 points. So keep in mind, it's not about hitting a home run. It's just getting on base. Getting on base is a win. Do not look at getting on base as a mark of failing to hit a home run. This person that came up the bat, they didn't hit a home run, but they got on base. They didn't strike out. That, my friend, is success. So when we put that into perspective, it just simply makes sense. Get on base. And if we get on base, we're winning. Now, that said, that brings us to your question. And I want you to kind of think into this one again because we're getting closer to the end. And this should start like pulling back some layers for you. Picture the version of you 1 year from tonight who actually became who you said you want to be. The renewed mind, the healed marriage, the disciplined life. Now look closely at the picture. Are you standing there alone? You're not alone, are you? There's a hand on your shoulder. So the real question is, who is that person? And why haven't you asked them yet? See, almost nobody pictures their transformed self standing alone. There's always somebody in the frame. You don't want to achieve this success without sharing it with somebody else. That instinct is the Holy Spirit confirming the design. And the real reason you haven't asked them yet usually isn't logistics, it's pride or it's shame. The two things that keep you isolated and the two things the enemy is counting on. Asking is not weakness. Asking is the first strong thing you do. Now, that brings us to our last point of the day. Man, our last point is all about the accountability audit. I'm going to give you 3 moves from alone to covered. Now, that said, if you don't have your pen and pads, make sure that you have your pen and pads. And y'all know me. When y'all ready, I want you to let me know. I am ready. See, these words are intentional. I am ready. Put it in the comment section. Let me see it. Because these 3 things that equate to your accountability audit, I think you're going to find not only easy, but I think you're going to find it. I think you're going to find it helpful. Make sure you say I am ready in the comment section so I can go ahead and give you these 3 points, because these 3 points, again, practical things that you can do coming out of Coach's Corner. That's really what we're all about. So now, here we go. You got isolated the way anybody does. You're not different. You're not special. You're not, like we talked about. We talked drift already. Drift happens in a particular way, the same way isolation does, quietly, by default, through drift and secrecy. So you come back the same way. You close any gap on purpose in small, deliberate moves. So here we go. Step number 1, name your one. One trustworthy, God-fearing person of proven character, your 3-fold cord partner. Choose character over convenience. I say again, choose character over convenience. Pick the person who will tell you the truth. Hint, hint. Pick the person who will tell you the truth, not the person that's going to tell you what you want to hear. That person should not be in any version of this consideration. Pick the person who will tell you the truth, okay? Not just the person who's easy to reach. Number 2, bring one thing into the light. This week, confess one real gap to that one person. Not your whole history. One true thing you've been carrying along. Secrecy dies today. Secrecy dies the moment it's spoken to safe ears. And then number 3, set the standing rhythm. Put a recurring cued check-in on the calendar. Every Sunday after service, Monday at 7 a.m., a call where they ask your going and your gaps. One person, one confession, one rhythm. That's the 3-strand cord in this equation. And it's not quickly broken. So I hope everybody got that. I hope you've written that down, because I think it helps. Because here's the deal. George Herbert says the best mirror is an old friend. See, 2 dimensions ago, I said that. We said you can't renew. 2 dimensions episodes. Come on, y'all work with me. 2 dimensions ago, we said you can't renew what you can't see. Awareness. Here's what Herbert knew 4 centuries back. Some things about yourself you'll never see in your own mirror. You only see them reflected in someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth. Some people need to hear that over and over and over again over the next 3 weeks simply because they've never heard that before. And that phrase alone contradicts something that they have in their psyche that they have been calling someone else mean for years when the only thing that person has been doing is trying to tell them the truth. Tell them the truth because they love them. See, a trusted friend is a mirror your blind spot can't hide from. See, consider one of the hardest strongholds a human being can face: alcohol addiction. In 2020, the Cochrane Review, the gold standard of medical evidence, examined 27 studies and more than 10,000 people found out what actually works. The winner wasn't a new drug and it wasn't raw willpower, it was Alcohol Anonymous. And its structured 12-step approach, which outperformed everything to include cognitive behavioral therapy. I'll say it again. It outperformed everything to include cognitive behavioral therapy. Keeping about 42% completely sober at 1 year versus about 35% for the clinical alternatives. Sit with that for a second. The single most effective tool humanity has found against one of its most powerful addictions is a room full of people telling each other the truth and holding each other up. Not willpower, not a better program, each other. That, ladies and gentlemen, is accountability. And it works right where everything else fails. See, Hebrews chapter 10, verses 25 and 24 and 25 says, "And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another." I don't necessarily believe we understand how powerful that is, how important this is. So, someone, if someone's ready to do this, but they look around and generally don't have that one person, no safe friend, no small group, nobody, where do they even start? That is an awesome, awesome question. First, I don't want you to hear condemnation in that. See, a lot of faithful people are relationally isolated, and it's not a verdict on their character. Here's the start, though. You don't need a perfect person. You don't need the next person. Move toward proximity. A solid local church, if that's your calling. A men's or women group, if that's where you want to go. A Bible study. A Christian coach or a counselor. Ironically enough, I think you'll find all of that here. Put yourself in the rooms where safe people gather, because you rarely find the one until you're in the room. Ask God directly for it. He is not going to command connection and then withhold the person. Then take the risk of the first move. I say again, take the risk of the first move. I say it a third time. Take the risk of the first move. Most people are waiting to be asked, quietly hoping someone reaches out to them. Be the one who reaches. I say again, be the one who reaches. I'm the one that have the need. I'm the one that needs to make the request. I believe wholeheartedly it is disingenuous for me to even say something out loud as it pertains to something that I'm struggling with. And then people flock to me, say, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. That's terrifying. Back up. Give me room. Let me breathe. Let me come to you because I was observing your character. I was observing how you do business, how you handle business. And let me ask you for your help. Let me ask you to be my mentor. Because that's really how it works. Listen, if you felt alone through this whole episode, that is exactly what the Mindset Academy community exists for. You don't have to build the fire from scratch. You can walk into one that's already burning. And trust me when I tell you, these people that's in the comment section, some may not be here tonight, and that's perfectly fine because life happens. But these people, when I tell you they're awesome, man, sometimes I just sit back and I'm just in awe of some of the things that they do and some of the comments that they make. So again, I want you guys to consider what is happening over here in the Mindset Academy, because when I tell you this is an awesome bunch that everybody should get the experience of being around, do not take that for granted. Do not believe that they're not here to help you. I'm telling you. So first and foremost, I want to put this up as we're getting ready to walk closer to it, because you can receive access to the Mindset Academy through this free webinar, through this free relational profile, right? You get the webinar, enroll. You can register for the webinar for free. You can register for the relational profile for free. And then from that stage forward, you can find access to the Mindset Academy. So it takes you 1 1 1 1 1, right? That's how it works. So my question for you guys before we get up out of here, right? My question for you is this: who came to mind? Because somebody did. Sometime in the last 30 minutes, a name surfaced. A person you already know could be your one. So here's the only question left that matters tonight. What would it cost you to text them before you go to sleep? And what has it already cost you that you haven't? See, someday somebody's name always surfaces. I mean, always surfaces. And that is not just random. That is grace putting a person right in front of you. The cost of texting them is small, and it's all up front. A little pride, a little awkwardness, 90 seconds of vulnerability. The cost of not texting them is large, and it comes on the installment plan. Another year of the same private failures. Paid a month at a time. Do the cheap thing tonight. Send the text. Listen, iron cannot sharpen iron from across the room. So I think for the most part, all of this stuff is good. I hope you guys got something out of it. I pray you got something out of it. Again, this is, I think I'm pointing in the right direction. This QR code up here is for August the 8th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you're in the room. Also, this book that's above my head, if you do not have your copy as of yet, I think you are missing out. So get your copy of Counting Sheep and Losing Souls, because again, eventually I'm going to do a book review, and I want as many people in the room as we humanly possibly can. Now, let's bring it home. You keep failing alone because you were never designed to renew your mind alone. Solitude was the first, not good. Accountability was never punishment, it's covering. Arms held up when yours give out. What you hide in the dark doesn't shrink there, it grows, because secrecy is the oxygen of every stronghold. But being known does what willpower never could. Iron sharpens iron. And the threefold cord is not quickly broken. So you come back the way you left. One person, one confession, one standing rhythm. Now, how isolated has your renewal really become? Don't guess. You've been guessing, and guessing is how you ended up alone. The Mind Renewal Index, I want you to, Mind Renewal Index, listen, I'm going to give you the website because I don't have it here, because I want you guys to get it. And I'm going to make it real simple. Scan this QR code first. You're going to see the website. And this website here should end with webinar. All you got to do is take that same link, erase the word webinar, and then just type in RENEW, renew. That will get you to the Mind Renewal Index. 36 questions, 8 minutes, anchored in scripture, measures all 6 dimensions, including tonight's accountability. It will show you in black and white exactly where you've been trying to do God's work with your own hands, and where your renewal starts. The mindsetcoach.academy/renew. I say again, the mindsetcoach.academy/renew. RENEW. Free results plus your recommended first steps. And don't take it alone. Take it, then hand your phone to the person sitting next to you and say, your turn. That's not the assignment after the sermon. That is the sermon. Renew the mind, transform your life. Listen, again, I'm Dwayne Dwyer, and next week, Dimension 4, application. Because knowing the truth was never the goal. Doing it is. Why the most dangerous seat in the house is the front row. Informed, moved, and completely unchanged, and how to finally close the gap between the sermon you heard and the life you're actually living. Be a doer, and I will see you there.
Mindset shift. We